Do your whistle.
Hey everybody, I didn't want to do it too loud. Thank you all so much for coming. I can't tell you how proud I am for this day. Okay, to be here. Yeah. And I didn't know I was going to do my own little speech of mine, but here I am. Okay, so I just told somebody, every single person in this room, we're connected to in at least one, if not 6 ways. I think, just because it is. So I hope you all, get a chance to talk to a few people that you don't know and maybe some people that you already do. So thank you all for coming. A lot of you know this lady right here, my sweet wife, as Joey, because we grew up as kids together, and that was her nickname, still is. I hardly ever call her Lisa, but that's her legal name. And so Lisa Richesson is her author's name and on her book. And unfortunately, the woman who's been her coach these last couple years was not able to be here tonight, Janice Harper. So, but there's a few other of the students here tonight, maybe we get a chance to meet them too. And lots of people to thank, but just really, this is monumental because the story is so, well, it's a memoir and it's very personal. It starts out, her being a young child and her growing up and her some trials and tribulations, but it certainly ends on a very good note, and a lot of those people are in this room. So, let her take it over. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you. I've never done this before, so please bear with me. I've been asked a little bit of a reading, so I will. I chose a little small part in the book. But I also want to thank some folks who are here that are significant to me, and well, that would be everybody. That's not going to work, but people who are part of the book, let's put it that way. So first, I want to thank Fred, my son Fred, and John. But I also want to thank and bring up Ginny. Ginny, you can do this. Yay. No. Ginny is the lovely lady who raised Fred. And that's part of the story. I also want to thank Aleha, who is my son's fiance and has been helping me today. I want to thank Allegra, Marion. You might want to stand up and be adored. Allegra designed the book cover.
Good job.
Very talented. I also want to acknowledge Kim, Danny. Good stand up. She's in my writing group, and unfortunately my teacher couldn't be here, so Kim is representing. Gosh, I want to thank Bobby because I've known her for so long, and my cousin Laurel, and her husband, and let's see.
Anybody whose names appear in the book?
Well,
Apart from the ones you've mentioned.
Bobby, these guys, Marcy,
Of course.
Fred's wife. I'm sorry. Fred's wife. I don't see her.
Amber right there.
There she is. Right in front of me. And Amber's in front. So, and I also most specifically want to thank Diane Denty. There she is. She has given this space for us to use tonight. And she has some lovely paintings here too, don't you think?
Yes.
So thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. This is just pretty special to me and important. So you guys want to say anything here?
Yeah.
You guys all hug.
I'll hug. She wants you
Like hands
Oh,
down picture.
I can do that.
There you go.
All right.
Boys.
That's a good one. Yeah, it's hot. Okay, that's too much. Okay.
I just want to say that I'm so proud of my mom.
So one of her dreams was to, write a book, become an author. And it's like, wow, it's like, here it is. I mean, it's really cool when you want to do something and you think about it, and she's been wanting to do this for years, and I don't know how many years it's been, and here we are. So I just want to say the other thing I want to say is my brother. I love him.
Well, and of course, I just have to say I couldn't have done any of this without my wife.
This could have been a very difficult, awkward situation because Fred met Lisa and John when he was 18. But every step of the way, Lisa has been very respectful of me and very sensitive to my needs. And it is a unique story because we all get along, and but I give Lisa and Fred credit for that.
And you. That's right.
And I'd like to say thank you to my mom for raising me, and then thank you to Lisa and John for coming into my life when I was 18. It was unexpected. I didn't even know I had a brother. I never even thought about having a brother. Never thought really about meeting, my birth mother. It's been an incredible experience. I'm very happy that it happened. I'm happy that Marcy is in Lisa's life. She's made a huge difference. So thank you.
Okay.
Reading.
So, I hadn't really thought about doing any kind of reading. So, I'm going to just do a small chapter so you don't all fall asleep. But I want to put it in context. And the context is that when I was a junior in high school at Rainier Beach, towards the end of that school year, and this was 1968, so any of you who are around here might remember this, I don't know, but probably not. There was some busing going on between some schools in the Central District and Rainier Beach, which at that time was kind of a out there white school, pretty much white. And the students who were being bused were not very happy about it. So one day, towards the end of the school year, some Black Panthers, like maybe, 30 of them, came and surrounded the school with their rifles over their shoulders. And because, they were representing the students who were not very happy about being bused, and it was a big deal. It was in the paper, and when it happened, I thought, well, what is this all about? The whole thing about race wasn't anything that really occurred to me, and other than my parents were jazz lovers, and I knew that Black people played jazz, and they loved Louis Armstrong, Fitzgerald, and the usual people. But having the Black Panthers come kind of made me think, well, there's a lot more to this race thing than people singing the blues. So, which is actually very topical right now, wouldn't you say? Yeah. So anyway, I didn't stay at Rainier Beach. I went to a different high school to graduate, and I thought I need to know more. I want to understand more about this race thing, what's going on, and why the Black Panthers are here, and what do they stand for, and what's the struggle. So I went to the librarian at Self High School and said, okay, I want to inform myself about these things, and I want some advice about what I should read. So that's what this little chapter is about. Okay, and it's called Going Native. And if you can't hear me, please say so. Okay. Although I didn't like the rifles, I sympathized with the Black Panther Party. I had seen the news coverage of Selma, Alabama, of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, of black people throughout the South being beaten and sometimes killed simply because they wanted a seat at the front of the bus. The huge divide between what I was seeing on the television news and reading in the papers and what I lived in my own life completely confused me. Although I lived in a segregated society and had been forced to move because I had a black friend, segregation was still a word I barely understood and didn't grasp its shameful origins. The history we'd been taught in school did not include what our country did to black people. So when the Panthers came to my school that day in 1968, race hit my life in a way that not even my friendship with Yolanda had done. That's another chapter. After the incident in the principal's office, police with guns and baton sticks hanging from their belts began patrolling the school and the grounds. Such an armed presence in schools in 1968 was unheard of, and it scared everyone, white, black, and everything in between. What if one of the cops whipped out a pistol and shot some unsuspecting freshman for smoking in the boys' room? What if there was another fight in the parking lot and the cops beat the kids with their sticks like we saw them do all the time to protesters in the news? What if they used tear gas on us the next time there was a food fight in the cafeteria? These thoughts concerned me, but not enough to do much about it. At that point in my life, I was only interested in finishing school so I could buy a one-way ticket to London. Thank you. Okay. Still, I became terrified of the police. But I was coming to admire the Panthers' guts, their organization, the food and medical care they provided to poor children, and their commitment to civil rights. I found their dark skin, liquid eyes, and their slight sense of danger seductive. When my senior year arrived, I'd had enough of the police in the hallways and the tension that seemed to grow greater day by day. I hadn't made many friends at Rainier Beach and felt no connection to what I was learning. I thought about dropping out of high school altogether and heading straight for to start my life as a writer, but I had sense enough to know that that wasn't a good idea. So I did the next best thing. Just as my parents had moved every time they faced a dilemma, so would I. I decided I would move to another school and enrolled at nearby Chief Sealth High School, a school named after a Native American that had no Native American students at the time. Things were different at the new school. There was a mix of wealthy kids who lived in brick split-level houses on the hill that overlooked Puget Sound, and working-class kids whose parents worked at the shipbuilders or steel factory and lived in clapboard ramblers. But I wasn't there long before I discovered that while the racial divisions weren't as distinct as they'd been at Rainier Beach, they persisted in palpable ways. Most of the kids were white, but there were some Asians and Hispanics and a smattering of blacks. Among them was a small clique of black chicks. You could say that in those days.
You can say it now, Joey.
Who showed up each day in Cadillacs driven by their boyfriends. The rumor was that they were prostitutes and their boyfriends were their pimps. This was a new image of race I hadn't before encountered, and rather than resolve my confusion, it only deepened it. Society was changing all around me, and I truly wanted to be part of the changes. So I decided, like a counterculture anthropologist, to discover the real world I was living in, the culture and customs of other people, and the dynamics of oppression and prejudice. I knew there was something different about me, although I wasn't sure exactly what it was. But it made me feel closer to the marginalized in society than with the upstanding, accepted white people around me. Most of all, I wanted to know more about race. I asked the librarian at school to recommend some books. You want to understand about the colored race? Her name was Mrs. McGill. You could also use that word then too, by the way. Her name was Mrs. McGill. She was dressed in a light pink twin set and perched on her narrow white nose with a pair of glasses that made her look like a Siamese cat. The look on her face gave me the impression that I had just transformed from innocent student to rabid radical before her eyes. Yes, I do, I said. What do you think I should read first? Well, I'm not sure. Let me ask Miss Jackson. So she left the front desk and went into the back room. Soon she returned with Miss Jackson, who was as short, round, and dark as Mrs. McGill was tall, skinny, and pale. I understand you want to read about race, Miss Jackson said. She maneuvered around Mrs. McGill so that she could converse with me without Mrs. McGill hearing. Here, she said, pulling out a chair at one of the study tables, let's sit here and talk. We sat next to each other and turned our chairs so that our knees nearly touched and our voices could be kept low. I felt as if she and I were creating a little cabal of radical idealism as we leaned towards each other and talked. So, how is it you're interested in Black history, she asked me. I told her about the incidents at Rainier Beach and my friendship with Yolanda. As I did, I could see her eyes soften and her shoulders relax. I had made a connection. She leaned even closer and looked me in the eye. This is a large subject you want to explore. You know that, right? And you understand that the history lessons you've been getting at school are not truthful or accurate or honest. Well, no, I didn't know my history class wasn't honest. Is Mr. Craig keeping things from us? Heavens no, he's just teaching what the curriculum tells him to. But if you are serious, I want you to realize that you will be walking down a path that will surprise you, shock you, and challenge what you've been taught to believe about your country. That's okay with me, I said. I want to understand. I want to know the things that have been kept from me. All right then, honey, get out your pencil and paper and let's make a list. As she spoke, I wrote down the names of authors I'd never heard of. James Baldwin, Ralph Ellison, Langston Hughes, Frederick Douglass, and Richard White. Right. Then I asked her about music. My parents have always listened to Black musicians, mostly Dixieland jazz. Can you give me some suggestions about other musicians I should listen to? Yes, she said, and let me give you a little lesson to start with. The term Dixieland is considered racially prejudiced. It harkens to the South, to slavery and lynching. Try using traditional jazz from now on, okay? She had me write down the names of Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Charlie Bird, Pharrell Sanders, Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee, Muddy Waters, Lead Belly, Jack Johnson, and Billie Holiday. Mm-hmm. With list in hand, I set out to go native. I'm also going to use some words that were okay then and not now, just so you're warned. No one questioned the use of nigger as a reference to someone with dark skin. I understood now that being called a nigger hurt people's feelings and didn't understand why people kept on using the word. But I wasn't really aware of the small changes that the civil rights movement was making. But by reading, my understanding began to emerge, and the anger of white and Black folks around race began to make sense. The first 3 books on the list I'd made with Miss Jackson were Dick Gregory's Nigger, James Baldwin's Notes of a Native Son, and Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. As I read the books, I was awed at the lives these men had lived. In so many ways, their lives were unlike anything I had ever known, and yet in other ways, I felt a deep connection to them, as if I too were somehow a stranger in my own land. I especially identified with Baldwin. I could see myself as an expatriate living in London, viewing my home country through the eyes of a disenchanted outsider. I intrinsically knew that I couldn't read or listen my way into a culture, but it was a start. I began with the naive notion that if I made some Black friends at my new school, they would discuss their viewpoints about race with me. But after reading Richard Wright's Native Son about the social realities that kept us divided and in so many ways defined our different futures, I realized that it would never be that simple. And of course, I couldn't have known that in the near future, I would be experiencing race up close and personal. The one book and the one author that really chilled me, that truly opened my eyes to the rage that lived within many Black men, was Eldridge Cleaver's Soul on Ice. It was a book I couldn't find in the library at school. I had to journey to a small leftist bookstore in the Pike Place Market to find a copy. Miss Jackson had said that if I was brave enough, I should read the book with an open mind, a mind ready to face the stark reality of one Black man's experience in trying to right the wrongs of slavery, racism, and ignorant hatred. Cleaver's description of stalking and raping the ogre, white women, terrified me. I'd certainly never thought of myself as an ogre, but I could see his point. White women were the ideal but unattainable prize. Since he couldn't win the prize in the usually sociable, acceptable ways, he stalked and raped them. It wasn't easy making friends at my new school, whether black or white, but that didn't bother me so much. After all, I already had plenty of wonderful friends outside of school. And since I was on my way to London, as soon as I graduated, adding more would just get in the way of my future. But one day, I noticed some of the black guys noticing me. Then I noticed the black girls noticing them, noticing me. "Hey, you little cracker-ass bitch," one of them yelled at me. "You think you can take one of our men?" I felt like I had just walked into the Twilight Zone. What on earth was she talking about? I started to answer, but I stuttered and the girls laughed at me. One of them yelled, "Girl, I'll beat you down so low and Aunt will piss on you." One of the boys approached me. I thought I was going to get slapped, but he put his arm around my shoulder and said to the girl, "Back off, bitch, this here's my girlfriend." The black girl scoffed and walked away. "Thanks," I said, "I guess you saved me from a beating." "Maybe," he laughed, "those girls just don't get it. Black guys are attracted to white girls because they don't swear and threaten us like black girls do." Having just completed Soul on Ice, I said, "It's not that simple now, is it?" "I guess not. I'm Darren, by the way. Always drawn to the forbidden and always a non-believer in rules. When Darren asked me for a date several days later, I accepted."
That was a nice reading, Joey.
Thank you.
Very good.
Very nervous.
And you keep going.
Didn't show.
Now we gotta read the book.
So, Mom,
I like this
Beth,
white I like the cover. Oh, thank you. Congratulations.
gotta wet my whistle.
Yeah.